West African history. Indirect rule used by the British. Indirect rule used by the British. This was a system of administration where African chiefs were used at the lower levels to implement the policies made by the British administration in their colonies, i.e. Nigeria, Ghana, etc. Why did the British use indirect rule system of administration? It was cheap, i.e. used African chiefs. The British were few in number, hence provided manpower. The system had worked successfully in other colonies, i.e. India. African chiefs could act as shock absorbers against African resistance. Africans solved the problem of language barrier. Some colonies had similar way of organization as that of the British government, hence using indirect rule. The British never wanted to remove the system got in Africa, hence respect for African societies. The British believed that colonies were not part of British, hence used their chiefs. The system could not cause resistance from the Africans. Africans respected their own chiefs. They were training Africans to become future leaders for self-government. They believed that Africans were barbaric and hated change, hence using indirect rule. How was indirect rule applied in the British colonies in West Africa? Indirect rule was headed by the British Secretary for Colonies, based in London, who was answerable to the British central government. In West Africa, colonies were under the Governor-General, who was in charge of the British federal colonies and protection. Then came the governor, who was in charge of a particular West African history. Indirect rule used by the British. There were also the provincial commissioners, who were British senior officers who headed provinces in the colony. Then came the district commissioners, whose role was to oversee the work done by the local appointed chiefs. Then below the district commissioners were African chiefs, elders who were elected by the local people but appointed by the British. The British made policies which were implemented by African chiefs. The local chiefs collected taxes on behalf of the British government. The local chiefs were also allowed to solve cases which concerned the local people. The British administrators were not allowed to interfere in the traditional religion of the natives, and mostly Islam, in northern Nigeria. Even if the chiefs were elected by the traditional leaders, the local chiefs had no powers to remove them. The local chiefs had their police force, which they used to implement orders. The local chiefs were to pay maximum respect to the senior officers, i.e. the British, as their masters. Why did indirect rule succeed in northern Nigeria? It did not interfere with the Islamic religion embraced by everyone in the area. It did not interfere with the local traditional system, i.e. it worked with the emirs. It did not interfere with the local courts, i.e. alkali courts were allowed to function to administer the Sharia laws. West African history. Indirect rule used by the British. It succeeded because the emirs were given authority to collect taxes, and some taxes remained with the emirs to develop the villages, which made them happy. The willingness of the emirs to work with the British led to its success. The British built roads, railways, schools, which made people happy. Lugard limited the activities of Christian missionaries to only non-Muslims. The British respected the borders, hence northern Nigeria